There we go. Sorry about that.
It's okay. Yeah. The images are good, but without the audio, it's just not the same. Okay, so where was I? Freemasonry is the oldest, largest, and most influential society. And I think we're frozen.
Skip.
The video is, do I just need to click that?
Yeah, just click on the screen and.
That we should go. Nope. There we go.
There we go.
Okay, good. So there's Freemasonry. It was established in the United States by 1720. Freemasonry is steeped in the political, scientific, economic, and philosophical ideas developed during the Enlightenment in Britain and France. Here are John Locke, James Watt, Adam Smith, and Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Their ideas were adopted by American Enlightenment thinkers such as Thomas Paine, James Madison, Benjamin Franklin, and Thomas Jefferson, to name just a few. The following from the book As Above, So Below, which you can take a look at the end if you would like, is a very good introduction to the origins of Freemasonry and of fraternal societies in general. Described in the Masonic ritual as a peculiar system of morality vagued in allegory and illustrated by symbols, Freemasonry's historical origins and symbolic foundations are generally understood to have begun with the guilds of medieval English stonemasons. During the 14th century, English stonemasons organized local guilds that developed a hierarchical system of governance, established rules, and monitored work. It provided support to infirm and elderly members in need, paid funeral benefits, and offered relief to the widows and orphans of deceased members. The guilds met in groups called lodges, where members gave or received instruction, demonstrated their skills, and advanced in their profession. They developed initiation rituals to distinguish members from outsiders and protect trade secrets. In the mid-17th century, the guilds began accepting members of the nobility as honorary, who became known as speculative or accepted Masons. Increasingly, these speculative or accepted Masons grew to include gentlemen and merchants, men not concerned with the stonemason's craft, but instead with the emerging intellectual and philosophical ideas of the Enlightenment. Over time, the speculative members began to outnumber their operative counterparts, the working stonemasons, and the focus of Freemasonry gradually shifted from the practical to moral and philosophical concerns while retaining many symbols and rituals of the stonemason guilds. Freemasonry was formed as a secular fraternal society open to men of all religions who professed belief in a single supreme being. The three principles upon which the new society was built were brotherly love, relief, and truth. Among the key concerns of the speculative Masons was the improvement of man through knowledge, particularly in the 7 liberal sciences: grammar, rhetoric, logic, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. Freemasonry included the 3 levels or degrees of membership: entered apprentice, fellow craft, and master mason. Freemasonry also borrowed its working tools from the stonemasons, assigning symbolic meanings to them. The tools used to shape and cut tough stone into perfect blocks provided fitting metaphors for refining the intellect and morals of men through Freemasonry. And so the emblem of Freemasonry, we see the compass and square, tools of Masons, framing the letter G, representing God, the architect of all, and geometry. Here is the Masonic Temple in Philadelphia, facing Broad Street across from City Hall. It is open for tours. The next couple of images will give an idea of the appointments of the building. Each lodge is assigned a particular hall. The carving in the wooden seats, plasterwork, and other decorations are amazing. We were invited and encouraged to take photographs. I was surprised. I thought, oh, it's all secret and everything. Take any pictures you want. The Shriners are a side order of the Masons, intended to be a lighter order that stresses fun and fellowship. The Eastern Star is the women's order. Note that women's orders were also referred to as fraternal, not sororal. As of 2012, there were over 1.3 million Masons in the US and more than 500,000 members of the Order of the Eastern Star. Odd Fellowship was the second to form in Great Britain. The first meeting was in 1748, and it was using a written ritual by 1795. It welcomed men from miscellaneous, that is, odd trades, unlike the Masons who were one specific. So odd trades, that's where Odd Fellowship comes from. It was formed to provide aid to members, but mainly to have a convivial atmosphere for drinking. Thomas Wildey was the founder of American Odd Fellowship. He came to the US in 1817 and established the first lodge in Baltimore in 1819. Wildey was orphaned as a child. His experiences inspired the Odd Fellows' command to visit the sick, relieve the distressed, bury the dead, and educate the orphan. American Odd Fellows split from the British and became the independent Order of Odd Fellows. The schism came in part because Great Britain abolished slavery, and American Odd Fellows wanted to keep their slaves. When I was reading in preparation for a talk on the Great Wagon Road, I came across a story about an Odd Fellows Hall that held slave auctions, one of their ways of raising money for their benefits. I was skeptical until I checked their website, and there was a lodge in Richmond that did hold auctions in the basement. The IOOF became more middle class as opposed to the Masons, which was more elite. They banned alcohol eventually and established a ritual based on the Bible. In Odd Fellows imagery, the three-link chain, which you can see at the top of the sign there, represents friendship, love, and truth. The heart in an open palm represents relief, charity, and sincerity. Like the Masons and Shriners, the ancient mystic order of Samaritans is the fun side order of the Odd Fellows. In fact, they call themselves the playground of Odd Fellowship. The Daughters of Rebecca is the women's order. The Knights of Pythias was founded in 1864 as a mutual aid society for government clerks. Their guiding principles are friendship, charity, and benevolence. And it's not a misspelling. His name was Justice. Harry Rathbone was a Mason and member of the Improved Order of Redmond and was serving as a chief clerk at a hospital in Germantown during the Civil War. The Knights grew significantly after the Civil War, becoming the third largest fraternal society after the Masons and Odd Fellows. They built castles, which were their lodge halls, and homes for orphans, widows, and the elderly. Like the two previous orders, the Pythians established an order for women. Their guiding principles are love, equality, and fidelity. The dramatic order Knights of Karasin, or Dokis, is the playground of Pythianism and emphasizes fellowship, mirth, and joy without the vulgarity besetting some other side orders. That's their description. The Knights of Pythias continues today with about 50,000 members. Next is the speculative woodcraft, which includes two fraternal orders. The first of these is the Modern Woodmen of America. It was founded by Joseph Cullen Root in 1882. He envisioned a new fraternal beneficiary institution for the protection of home, widow, and orphan to comfort the sick, cheer the unfortunate, and promote fraternal love and unity. The idea for the name came to him while listening to a church sermon in which the minister spoke metaphorically of woodmen clearing away the forests. Membership was open to white males between the ages of 18 and 45 in the 12 healthiest states: Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, the Dakotas, Nebraska, and Kansas, not Pennsylvania. Among the excluded were residents of large cities and men engaged in professions determined to be hazardous or unwholesome, including the sale of intoxicating beverages. No mention of lumbering, one of the most hazardous occupations. Local chapters were called camps. Their symbolism came from forestry. The axe representing industry, the beetle, a large mallet, representing progress, and the wedge, power, were symbolic work tools of the order. The Modern Woodmen of America became known for its precision axe drill teams, the Modern Woodmen Foresters. They performed dazzling spectacles with elaborate uniforms, shiny axes, and meticulous drills. More than 160,000 men participated in 10,000 units. The drill teams faded away in the 1930s. Just think of what comes to mind. Twirling axes, what could possibly go wrong? The Royal Neighbors of America, founded in 1888, was the women's affiliate, chartered as a fraternal benefit society, finally chartered actually in 1895. It severed ties with the MWA in 1929 and remains the largest fraternal life insurance society administered by women. They are centered in Rock Island, Illinois. In 1890, an internal dispute prompted Root to resign from the Modern Woodmen of America. He formed a new fraternal insurance company, the Woodmen of the World. Wow. Installing himself as supreme commander. It was open to men of all religious beliefs and political parties. Its rituals, tools, and symbolism were nearly identical to the Modern Woodmen. The motto was Dum tacet clamat, or though silent, he speaks. Perfect woodcraft was inspired by forestry. Chapters were camps. The organization as a whole was the forest. Individual members were sovereign neighbors. The 4 degrees were protection, morning, noon, and night. What follows is the initiation ritual for the morning degree. According to the book, As Above, So Below, the hoodwinked or blindfolded candidate entered as a stranger in darkness and took a symbolic journey in which he was presented with obstacles, tested, and found worthy of admission to the forest. The candidate was also fitted with a burden of selfishness on his breast and of hatred on his back. On his feet, he wore wooden shoes representing the heavy load of prejudice. Conducted by an escort, he would cast off these burdens one by one and force his way through the narrow passage of opposition and envy. Finally, he would navigate a dangerous pathway created by placing planks on rollers, where before being admitted to the clearing within the forest, where at last the hoodwink was removed and the candidate beheld the light of woodcraft. Having thus successfully achieved the degree of mourning, the new sovereign neighbor would then be given the passwords, shown the secret signs, and congratulated by his fellow sovereigns before receiving the head camp honors of 6 slaps on the shoulders. Finally, all present declared in unison, "He is a chopper." The Woodman's Circle was the women's auxiliary incorporated as a separate fraternal society in 1895. Individual circles met in groves and were governed by a supreme forest. In 1903, WOW formed 2 youth groups, the Woodman Rangers and Rangerettes. Next is the Improved Order of Redmen. The Society of Redmen was formed by a group of military men in 1813 at Fort Mifflin on the Delaware River. The name was selected to identify with the Aborigines of the country for patriotic reasons, to show their attachment to the soil they inhabited, either by birth or adoption. Its constitution stated that it was instituted not only for social purposes, but as a benevolent society to relieve the distresses of each other, our wives and children. The Society of Redmen's motto was freedom. Membership was limited to white men only, but slave owners were barred. Indians were not accepted until 1974. One more thing before we go on. Why Indian regalia and so on? If you think back to your study of American history and the Boston Tea Party, Boston Tea Party was conducted by members of the Sons of Liberty. The Sons of Liberty for the Boston Tea Party and for other activities dressed as Indians. So they were hearkening back to this pre-Revolutionary War era patriotic society. During the antebellum period, most fraternal societies met in taverns. The Society of Redmen developed a reputation for boisterous, alcohol-fueled conviviality, following the quenching of the council fire. So they'd have their meeting, quench the council fire, and then get down to the business of the tavern. Things got so bad that the Philadelphia Society declined in status and membership, much to the concern of the better element. The organization was recast as the Improved Order of Redmen in Baltimore in 1834 to rid itself of the evil effects of the decanter. The new order held its meetings in a temperance house and in its bylaws forbade holding meetings where firewater was sold. The degree of Pocahontas was formed for women in 1885. The organization's main function was as a benevolent society for its members, providing insurance benefits for widows, orphans, and the disabled, and funeral expenses for deceased members. Their motto was freedom, friendship, and charity. The Redmen tradition is that the Iroquois Confederation inspired their society. In reality, their primitive red man was more like the romanticized American Indian of dime novels and popular theater. The brave was the symbolic order, the symbol of ideal masculinity, a fierce and noble warrior. He lived in harmony with nature and held special knowledge of the natural and spirit worlds. This is the first order to have distinctly American origins. The Red Men had plenty of material from which to borrow. The national and state headquarters were great councils. Districts were reservations, and local groups were tribes. The local tribes used native-inspired names, such as the Tohickon tribe, the one in Green Lane. Meetings were council fires and began with the rapping of a tomahawk. Officers held such titles as Sachem, Sanap, Sagamore, Prophet, and Collector of Wampum. Fraternal supply companies began to produce regalia for Red Men. This leather ritual costume features extensive glass beadwork and leather fringe. Some early Red Men costumes featured beadwork and moccasins created by Native American artisans hired by regalia companies. This one represents the highest quality and most expensive of the offerings. In some cases, Red Men's regalia has been mistaken for the real thing, even by experts. This cloth costume would have been a more modestly priced one. One last item relating to the improved order of Red Men. Here is a certificate that was awarded to Red Men who served during World War I. This one belonged to Elmer Berge of Moorwood, Montgomery County. The improved order of Red Men still exists with its national office in Waco, Texas. And now we come to the Order of the Patrons of Husbandry. Oliver Hudson Kelly was from Minnesota by way of Boston, then Illinois, then Iowa. His agricultural knowledge was minimal, and he approached the problem through book farming, researching the latest methods and machinery, experimenting with crops, and sharing information with others through various agricultural publications and societies. He became a clerk under the Commissioner of Agriculture in Washington, D.C. in 1864, and toured the South in 1866 to report on resources and conditions, the first such inspection since before the Civil War. He saw the need for solidarity among farmers, for progress in farming methods, and for the elevation of the status of farmers. His vision, a secret society of agriculturalists based on the Masonic model. Kelly envisioned a brotherhood of farmers with several degrees and signs and passwords. The lectures for each degree would be practical, appertaining to agricultural work, at the same time conveying a moral lesson. He also stated that every tool used by farmers and gardeners should be emblems of the order in some degree, and each convey a practical and moral illustration. Finally, the society should be affordable to join and therefore inclusive to farmers of limited means. Kelly and a corps of 7 others founded the Order of the Patrons of Husbandry in 1867. Among the founders was John R. Thompson, a high-degree Mason who contributed to the society's degree rituals. Reverend Aaron B. Grosh contributed prayers and collected songs for the order. William Ireland had expertise in parliamentary law and journalism. Carolyn A. Hall was Kelly's niece and assistant. Her influence resulted in full and equal membership for women. There was no affiliated organization as with other societies. The Grange was the first American fraternal society to do this and proclaimed equality of the sexes and endorsed universal woman suffrage. Still, she's absent from the broadside. Here are the founders, but where's Caroline? The Order of Patrons of Husbandry's structure, hierarchy, and leadership and ritual system were designed around the Old English baronial estate system. State, county, and local affiliates were designated granges. after the old British term for the smaller farms that comprised large estates. That is a bit incongruous with its grassroots populist mission of empowering farmers. Eventually, the organization would be known commonly as the Grange. The Grange offered 7 degrees of membership, the first 4 corresponding to the 4 seasons. There were both male and female titles for each degree. The male titles were laborer, cultivator, harvester, and husbandman. The female titles were maid, shepherdess, gleaner, and matron. These were conferred to the local or subordinate level. A 5th was conferred at the state level and the last 2 at the national level. Like other societies, the Grange adopted secret knocks, passwords, and salutes, and their rituals conveyed moral lessons. The terminology, rituals, and tools were related to agriculture, the first and most noble of all occupations. The plow reminded the candidate to lay his hands straight and his furrows smooth, and to diligently drive the plowshare of thought through the heavy clods of ignorance, to prepare the mind for the seeds of knowledge and wisdom. The Grange developed rapidly into a political advocacy organization in support of the farmer at a time when industrialization and urbanization had led to a decline in the number of farmers as well as their political power and social status. Here is Pennsylvania's Grange number 1, established just 4 years after the national organization was founded. Keystone Grange number 2 in Trapp was formed 2 years later. The major issues addressed by the Grange included grievances against the railroad industry, especially rates for getting produce to market. Also were concerns about crop overproduction, prohibitive prices for farm machinery, high taxes, and the increasing practice of crop mortgaging with extortionate interest rates, 15 to 20%, all of which led to rural poverty and debt. By 1875, the Order of Patrons of Husbandry had 800,000 members and had become a unifying force in rural America, especially in the upper Midwest. In putting together the overview of fraternal societies, reference was made to some of the services they provided. By examining these services, an important distinction must be made. Various British friendly societies and colonial American societies provided charity or relief to their members. The Independent Order of Oddfellows established a new trend by using a clear schedule of guaranteed benefits. The IOOF preferred the terms benefit and right. As one member put it, money was not paid or received as charity. It is every brother's right and paid to everyone when sick, whether he be high or low, rich or poor. Also, this was not an unconditional entitlement. Aid was withheld for habitual drunkenness, profanity, adultery, or disruptive behavior. Early on, the philosophy was that all members should pay the same amount for insurance and that they would receive the same benefits. This reflected their faith in democracy and equality. The result was that many societies ran into financial troubles as they charged the same for younger and older members and for people in occupations of varying degrees of risk of injury. The solution for many? Simply enlist more members. This was unsustainable and raised a movement in favor of regulation. Some societies resisted, but many embraced the idea and worked with state legislators and Congress to enact the New York Conference Law of 1910. It defined fraternal society and established the differentiated rates for them and for the commercial insurance industry. Actuary tables were established and different rates were charged according to age. This protected fraternal societies and guaranteed their solvency. Many of the orders provided life insurance. This was very important to many members as it provided protection for widows and orphans. Keep in mind that many societies appealed to working class and even poor members and provided insurance at a time when the commercial providers would not insure them. In case you think fraternal life insurance is a thing of the past, here is the Woodman Life Insurance Company building in Omaha. Some sold old age insurance long before Social Security was adopted. Several even provided sickness benefits. The Household of Ruth, the women's affiliate of the all-Black Grand Union Order of Oddfellows, was founded in 1857. It charged an initiation fee of $2.50 and monthly dues of 50 cents. The amount entitled members to a weekly payment of $6 for the first 6 weeks of any disabling illness and $3 per week for the next 6 weeks. These orders demonstrated great generosity with a willingness to deny the undeserving. On the one hand, they would pay beyond what was authorized if the member was seen as truly deserving. On the other, one member claimed 4 weeks in a Harlem hospital. When lodge officers visited the hospital to check on the validity of the claim, no one there had heard of her. Claim denied. Here is a Masonic Lodge broadside from 1877 warning of a man calling himself Herbert Sidney and claiming to be a member of a lodge in Stratford, Essex, England. He said he was a portrait painter and was ruined by a fire at St. John's, Canada. He was tramping about victimizing Masonic lodges and the St. George's societies. Many fraternal orders provided some sort of death benefits. Many provided policies to cover the cost of a funeral and burial. This was a real incentive for many members. There was a very real stigma attached to being buried in an unmarked grave. People would make significant sacrifices to be guaranteed this legacy. Some societies even had their own cemeteries. Here is a map showing the Oddfellows Cemetery at 24th and Diamond Streets in Philadelphia. In 1950, it was acquired by the Philadelphia Housing Authority for construction of a housing development. The bodies were moved to 2 other Oddfellows cemeteries. One of them was Lakeview Memorial Park in Rockledge, Montgomery County. The Red Men also had their own cemeteries. Several orders also made various types of grave markers available. Here is a Red Men's burial stake. Notice it says on the shield, TOTE, Totem of the Eagle. This is a gravestone of an Oddfellow, and his membership is shown with the stylized Oddfellows 3-link chain. Here's an Oddfellows burial stake in the same cemetery. This is a much older one that looks like probably cast iron. That cemetery is between Waterville and Augusta, Maine. And we see lots and lots of hillside cemeteries. This is a sort of rare one that's terraced. Somebody went to a lot of trouble. Enid Simpkins was a member of the Eastern Star, and Kenneth was a Mason. Ernest Merrow and his wife, Eula Bean, were members of the Patrons of Husbandry. The Woodman of the World was probably best known for its gravestones. The tree trunk monuments were 4 to 5 feet high and symbolized, an end to life. From 1890 to 1900, the Woodmen's life insurance policies had a proviso that provided for grave markers free of charge. From 1900 to the 1920s, members purchased a $100 rider to cover the cost of the monument. After the mid-20s, the order discontinued the marker benefit due to increased cost of the stones. In later years, the Woodmen of the World logo continued to appear on member gravestones. Winwood S. Carson, MD, was a member of the Woodmen of the World. Some fraternal societies ran businesses in addition to the various types of insurance. This was especially true of African American orders, since in Jim Crow America, many businesses were segregated. Some published newspapers, others operated banks. Many banks run by whites would not lend to blacks. Others charged blacks much higher rates of interest. The Grand Fountain Order of True Reformers operated a savings bank in Richmond run by a black order. Maggie L. Walker was a teacher and businesswoman and a member of the Independent Order of St. Luke, a black order. She was the first American female black bank president, and to charter a bank in the United States. Here is the interior of the St. Luke Penny Savings Bank, a National Historic Site. Some societies provided low-cost medical services to lodge members. This was most common in larger cities such as Chicago and New York, and among recent immigrants such as Italians, Germans, and Jews. It became known as lodge practice. One order noted for lodge practice was the Fraternal Order of Eagles, which was centered mainly in the Mississippi Valley and the West. In 1910, McClure's magazine described the group as a great national organization of sporting men, bartenders, politicians, thieves, and professional criminals. McClure's wasn't kind. The order launched a highly visible and successful campaign for the proclamation of Mother's Day, refurbishing its image. The details varied, but the typical was for a doctor to hire on for an annual fee based on the number of members. Members paid each airy, charged a standard $2 medical fee that guaranteed treatment to each member, including minor surgery. The Fraternal Order of Eagles also covered members' families. Some orders provided house calls and medicine. Conditions not covered by the Fraternal Order of Eagles program were venereal disease, pregnancy, and any sickness or injury caused or brought about by the use of intoxicating liquors or opiates or by any immoral conduct. Medical journals and medical societies took a dim view of all this, calling it the lodge practice evil, and they called lodge doctors scabs, quacks, and hucksters. What cannot be denied is that many people who otherwise might not have been able to afford medical care received it at a low cost. Fraternal societies also established orphanages for their members. Between 1890 and 1922, societies founded 71 orphanages, most with no government subsidies. Mooseheart was founded by the Loyal Order of Moose in 1910 on 1,014 acres near Aurora, Illinois. Known as the Child City, it has its own power plant, water supply, hospital, baby nursery, post office, department store, bank, radio station, and an 800-acre farm. Children lived in cottages, not dormitories. They attended classes during a 48-week school year. Academic classes included civics, American history, English composition, and commercial history. The emphasis, however, was on vocational training. For boys, animal husbandry, carpentry, automobile and electrical work. For girls, shorthand, typing, sewing, painting, and music. According to the general director of the order, The Moose are mostly working men, and so they equip their wards for industrial life. Mooseheart's vision, therefore, was industry first and literature afterward. The Shriners established hospitals specializing in care to children with orthopedic conditions, burns, spinal cord injuries, and cleft lip and palate. This one is in Philadelphia. Mound Bayou, Mississippi was founded by freedmen in 1887. In the Jim Crow South of 1942, there was no hospital that would provide care for Blacks. The International Order of 12 Knights and Daughters of Tabor built a hospital in Mound Bayou. Over the years, it was abandoned and fell into disrepair. It recently underwent a complete rehabilitation and has reopened as an urgent care center. It is the second oldest hospital for Blacks in Mississippi. The Woodmen of the World operated a tuberculosis sanatorium in Colorado Springs, Colorado. There was a hospital, and the patients lived in individual frame tents. Many people know of Fraternal Society's homes for the aged. Here is an Oddfellows home in Enos, Texas, Moose Haven in Florida, another Oddfellows home in Groton, Connecticut, and the Masonic home on Ridge Pike in Lafayette Hill. Let's take a look at some evidence of Fraternal's activity in the local area. Here is a photo of the Red Hill Broom Works. There was a lodge hall upstairs, but for the life of me, I can't remember what it was. Does anybody remember what that one was in the second floor? I'll have to see if I can find that. This is the Oddfellows Hall that was here in Pennsburg. It had Wean Store in the first floor. It was raised and became a park for a time. This was a Brotherhood of America Lodge Hall in South Percy. It was later used as a factory. I don't know much about them. They seem to have been another life insurance fraternal society founded in 1897 in Iowa. It merged with the Independent Order of Foresters in 1931. This photograph shows Knights of the Golden Eagle members lined up for a parade in Green Lane. And that's Lumber Street. The hotel, the Keystone House, this was the Keystone House Hotel. What later became Kleinbox was behind here. This is a building in Coopersburg. It was an Oddfellows Hall. This one you saw earlier, you saw a modern photo, catty corner across from the Washington House in Sellersville. The Oddfellows are still active there. Realty Hall stands in East Greenville. It had commercial spaces on the first floor, an auditorium gymnasium on the second floor, and a lodge hall on the third floor. This is a great photo. You might recognize the building to the right, but not the one to the left. The bank was torn down, and probably in the 60s or 70s, it was an office of Union National. But the one to the right, that was the Keeley House Hotel. It is now an owl's nest. The Patriotic Order Sons of America had a lodge in Bechtelsville. These are two active lodge Grange halls, one in Kutztown, one in Fleetwood. Keystone Grange number 2 is in Trapp. Notice the plug for the Speaker's House there. And this, I don't know how this got in here. Ed's Place for Pottery. That's the little place that sells produce at the top of the Sumneytown Hill. That's got sneaked in here somewhere. Some old lodge halls have been put to new uses. The Richland Grange Hall became an auction house. That business has since closed and the building's been sold, and I'm not sure, I think it's a residence now. Norway Grange number 45 in Maine saw its membership decline in the second half of the last century. At under 50 members, maintaining the building became difficult. In 2002, the Grange entered into an agreement to allow the Oxford Hills Music and Performing Arts Association to use the building for its activities. This partnership has allowed for a restoration of the building and its beautiful mural, and the Grange still meets there. Philadelphia Lodge number 2 of the Benevolent Protective Order of Elks is now a Salvation Army facility. It's wonderful that they kept the Elks sculpture above the entrance. I love this building. It's on Ridge Road, just past Keller's Church, over in, I guess that's Bedminster Township, Bucks County. It was a Grange Hall and is now used by a plumber, electrician, HVAC guy who uses it for his supplies storage. The old Mauch-Chunk Oddfellows Hall is on Broadway in Jim Thorpe. I couldn't get inside. From the ground, it looks like the upper floors are vacant. Lakeside Grange Hall in Barnesville seems to be maintained, though no longer used. That's northwest of Tamaqua. And I was just talking about this one with somebody a few minutes ago. This is the Fraternal Order of Orioles, nest number 22 in Boyertown. I didn't know it existed until about a year ago. My wife and I were driving home through Boyertown and there was a parade, so we had to detour, went right by it, and so there's one in Boyertown. Fraternal societies were so prevalent, they were even portrayed in popular culture. Fred and Barney belonged to the Loyal Order of Water Buffaloes. Howard Cunningham was a grand poobah of the Leopard Lodge number 462 in Milwaukee. By the way, if you're wondering about the numbers, all these lodges were, for instance, Tohickon Tribe number 386, in Green Lane. That means it was the 386th lodge of the Red Men formed in Pennsylvania. So Keystone Lodge number 2 of the Grange, that's the second formed in Pennsylvania. In About Schmidt, Jack Nicholson portrayed Warren Schmidt, a retiring actuary with Woodmen of the World. And that's a priceless picture. My favorite, though, is the Honeymooners. Ralph Cramden and Ed Norton belong to the International Order of Friendly Sons of Raccoons. Their motto was E Pluribus Raccoon. They touched elbows, then wiggled their raccoon tails and cried, woo! They ended by saying, brothers under the pelt, in unison. Norton once said he had to go to an emergency meeting of the lodge. His wife asked if that was a poker game. His reply, an emergency meeting is an emergency meeting. An executive meeting, that's a poker game. Fraternal benefit societies went into decline in the 20th century. Some of the reasons might be kind of surprising. This is a former Masonic temple in Newburgh, Ohio. Rotary International was formed in 1905, Lions Club International in 1917. These are service organizations, not mutual aid societies. One program of Rotary is their exchange student program. The Lions run leader dogs for the blind. The new attitude of service to others made the older mutual aid societies look selfish, or at least self-interested. Social Security, established in 1935, provided a degree of security for Americans in their old age. And that's what a lot of the fraternal societies were about. During the post-war economic boom, of the 1950s and 60s, large employers and unions agreed to various fringe benefits, including sick days, life insurance, and third-payer health insurance. In 1965, President Lyndon Johnson signed a law establishing Medicare and Medicaid. These mid-century developments reduced the need for individuals to join together to provide mutual aid. And we can look to the changing habits of Americans. The main function of fraternal societies was never entertainment, but they did provide a place to gather socially, shoot pool, see a minstrel show, and in many cases have a drink. Whether it's television, backyard pools, travel, or cell phones, we have found other ways to occupy our time. I couldn't finish without mentioning Redmond's Hall in Green Lane, built in 1907 and 1908 by Totican Tribe number 386 of the Improved Order of Redmond. And that's a talk that I've put together for possibly another time. And if you would like to take a look at 3 of the sources that I used for this talk, I have those here. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'll do my best. Yes.
Why did they use the word mystic? What was that? That always throws me. I don't know. They didn't have that. I don't. Can you answer the microphone so people?
I'm sorry. The question was why the word mystic? And many of them did. The Supreme Mystic Circle, and that was one. There's a charter hanging in Redmond's Hall in the stairwell to the museum. I think it's a Supreme Mystic Council, something like that. And along with the Grange, it was one of the few that accepted women and men on an equal basis. They have all the charter members, and but why it was just part of the mystery. They had their rituals, and I always thought, well, the ritual, what the handshakes and the passwords and so on, but that was actually enshrined in law. That was part of it.
Yeah. Speaking only about today, those still in existence. Are these organizations required to accept minorities, or they can discriminate against anyone?
As far as I know, they are private organizations, and they can determine who their members are. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the question was, in today's world, can they must they accept anybody who wishes to be a member, or can they continue to discriminate? And as far as I know, they can set their own membership requirements. Now, as I said, the Improved Order of Redmond, honoring red men but not accepting them until 1972, I think I said, they changed with the times. Yeah. Yes.
So one of the things that you indicated was a requirement is they have a facility to meet.
Right.
So they built these huge facilities, which cost a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So when they disbanded, we're 100 years later, who got the money? Who sold it? How did they sell it? Where did the money go?
Really good question. One example is Redmond's Hall in Green Lane. It was built on land that was donated by the people who there were 2 hotels in Green Lane, one right next to Redmond's Hall. That was the Green Lane Hotel. They donated the land for that building. And then they had a fundraising campaign, not just their members, but also pale faces. and they encouraged people to join. And so you would be able to support the effort, and it was an investment. So you got some interest from that. Now, in the Redmond's charters, they specified that when they got down to a certain number of members, then they would disband, and the facility would have to be sold. And that happened with Redmond's Hall in the 1970s, and the Goschenhoppen Historians bought it from the few remaining members. Now,
Invested shareholders?
yes, so they
so they get the money.
So they got to divide up what was left, yeah. And the story goes that there were some red men from Philadelphia who came up and they wanted to take regalia, the costuming, but all of the records, the paper records for the Tohickon tribe are in the collection of the Goschenhoppen Historians. And so we have all their construction records, all their membership records, everything.
Range in Red Hill on Adams
There
Street.
was, and I don't know, I don't think it's active anymore. I'm not sure. But yes, there was a Grange Hall in Red Hill. Yes.
So you have the beaded regalia?
No, we have none of that.
Oh.
No, they took that, but they left us with all the paper records. Yeah. And there are still a couple of Redmen tribes in the city of Philadelphia. Yes.
Regalia that you have, Redmond's, it's the fake stuff that they made, it's the, I don't know how to say it.
It's more costume
It's
than
costume,
the really good stuff. Yeah,
It needs there, but it's costume.
right, right. And that was donated to us, I believe. That was not left over when the Red Men disbanded. Yeah, we have a few items. We have a club that was used in initiations. We have a nice little collection.
So
Yes.
Is there a current Mason organization in the valley? Masons,
Where are they?
because for some reason I remember something going on, a funeral, and there were the men that came that had the aprons and things.
I know there's one in Souderton. I know there's one in Quakertown. Coopersburg. Okay.
So the Masons and the Shriners are two different organizations.
They are affiliated.
Okay.
They are affiliated. So it's the Masons are the more serious part and the Shriners are the more fun, the lighter part. Yes.
Term Grand Poobah. Is that something, is that derived?
I don't know. Does
or is that?
that come from Gilbert and Sullivan or somewhere? I'm not sure.
That the Flintstones used at the ground.
Yeah, yeah.
Other than Flintstones, is it actually, the term actually used?
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh, okay.
It's more the sort of popular culture part of it. Yes, sir.
You mentioned Eastern Star is for the women related to the Masons. Is that correct?
Related to?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Growing up in the 50s, I had a friend of mine who was a member of the D Malay, which seemed to be for kids of the Masons. Is that?
I'm not familiar with that one. I didn't come across that, but some of them did, like the Woodmen, they had for young people.
Apparently it was to encourage them to become
Right.
members, but they were too young to be inducted at that point.
Sounds right.
Yeah, our historical society was given a lot of things when the Oddfellows disbanded in Coopersburg. And I've just been wondering like what some of those things were used for. We received this long velvet teal robe and we received a really horrible looking mask and there were like sashes and we received a speaking tube that we said was used on the door. And what was the symbolism like of this robe? Because obviously it must have been somebody pretty high up.
Well, they would wear these ritual costumes for their meetings and especially their initiation rites. And that was all part of the now some were pretty simple and basic, but some of them were pretty elaborate. Yeah. Yeah, and lots of symbolism, right? The heart in the palm, the 3-link chain, you saw that little plaque with the red men, TOTE, totem of the eagle. Lots and lots of symbolism. Yes. So that if somebody represented himself as a member and he really wasn't, you'd know it.
So the Catholic Church has the Knights of Columbus.
Yes.
that's not a fraternal order, or is that?
As far as I know, it is, yeah.
Okay, so that's a fraternal
Mhm.
order, but you have, it gotta be members of the Catholic Church.
As far as I know, yes. Yep. There used to be one just outside of Trimbarsville, but I don't know if they disbanded or if they moved, but the building they were in is now being used for another function. Yes.
There's a church in Norristown where I grew up, as a matter of fact, that is an Italian-based church, and at one time you had to be 100% Italian to be a member of the church. They've changed that a lot, but you still have to have some Italian blood in you. And the male or fraternal order of something or other, of Holy Savior, I guess is the name of the church. Yeah, you have to be Italian, yeah, and a member of that church.
And there were,
Club.
and that's sort of what part of the origins of the Society of Redmond were about, because you had the Society of St. George, which was British. I forget what the Scottish one was. And Americans said, well, we want something. And they formed the Society of St. Tammany. And then eventually that turned into the Redmond. Yes.
So is this different than like back in the before me, but let's say in the 30s and 40s and 50s, these social clubs like the Slovak club, the Italian club, the Polish club, is that just as you know, because you were of that, you know, origin?
Probably more social than the mutual benefit, but I'm not sure. There's one on the road to Huff Church. Yeah, it's Hungarian American Club. And down at where that road meets Route 100 on the poles, they used to be both painted red, white, and green. Now one's red, white, and blue. But yeah, there's a Hungarian American Club there. And I believe it's mostly social, not quite like this, but I could be wrong. Yes.
Sorry, I missed the very beginning. Is there a relationship between the Masons and the Elks? Because my dad was a Mason in Louisiana when he was there in the army during World War II. So he was a Mason. My mom was an Eastern Star person. But then when they came up to Pottstown, he became Elk.
As far as I know, they're not connected, but it wasn't uncommon for people to be members of more than one. You know, you might be a member of 3 or 4 different ones.
Male began what would you call them, groups for quite a number of years for my parents until I wrote and said, I'm sorry, they're deceased, you know. Both Masons and Eastern Star. He's pretty active, in other words. I was surprised.
Well, the improved order of Redmond now, there's none of the insurance aspect of it anymore. It's not mutual aid, but it is mainly patriotic and social organization and charity. If you have any other questions, I'll be glad to take them up front here. And if you want to take a look at the books, please come up. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. There's an online question. If you, oh. Oh.